Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, Burnley 3, Aston Villa 2. But before we get into that, how you doing, mate?
Oh man, welcome back.
Yeah.
Welcome back. It's been a minute. It's been a pretty minute, mate. That familiar feeling that only the Villa can provide has returned. And yeah, I just want to say shout out to everyone listening to this podcast because you are the real MVP. I respect all of you guys so much for wanting to put yourselves back through that ordeal again. But you know what Dan and I do? We like to try and see things in the best possible light, not just for the sake of it, but Dan and I always try to find the silver linings within the clouds. And I imagine that's what we're going to do today. But it's going to be harder than on most times, isn't it, mate?
It is, and I'm going to get it out of the way now, so as I don't annoy you with it later on, or you're sat there and you're like,
The XG.
when's he gonna bring up the XG? I can't wait to berate it again. A shout out to the XG philosophy because with a scoreline of Burnley 3, Aston Villa 2. Burnley, Dan, and I hope you haven't seen this because this will shock you. Burnley had an XG of 0.77 compared to Aston Villa's 2.94. I can see you shocked. I can see you're disappointed. You've got to work the percentages, man. It's in games like this, it is about percentage football, especially when you look at just straight away down to get into the amount of shots versus the amount of goals. 18 shots for Villa, 2 goals, conversion rate 11%. As for Burnley, they had 10 shots, scored 3 goals, 30% conversion rate. We've almost doubled them, and they've, in the sense of shots that we've managed to create in the game, and they've come out and they've scored 2 more goals than us. It's largely frustrating, especially when we've been on this nice little run of form. We've not lost one of these banana skin games in a while, and we're coming into this now, Dan. Obviously, it's disappointing that we've lost this game. As you alluded to, we're going to try and take positives from it. Obviously, not for no reason, but I think there are things to be impressed with. But there are certainly things, Dan, that we do have to highlight, and I guess that does come, with what I've just referenced to there, with the shots. I've seen a lot of people, and I do think this is quite knee jerk and reactionary, saying that they hope this is giving Dean and the board and everyone a kick up the backside to sign a backup striker. I don't think that's the case. I think the first thing we need to establish, Dan, Nick Pope had a very good game in between the sticks, made plenty of important saves, more so in the first half. And as cliche as it is, Dan, I think ultimately what this game came down to was really of it being a game of two halves, because we didn't see the Villa of the first half later in that second half. And it's safe to say that Burnley played like a side who have never even heard of Sean Dyche.
Yeah, mate. Well, the thing is Burnley are, and we're not going to be the only team in the Premier League that have this problem, but Burnley are very much our bogey side. We haven't won back-to-back away games against Burnley in the top flight since 1900. It's been 101 years since we last kept a top flight clean sheet against them. 101 years of football against Burnley in the top flight, and not once have we managed to stop them from scoring. I don't know what it is about Aston Villa and Burnley, but time and again, they find a way to get the better of us. And the thing is what's frustrating is before the game, you knew what we had to do to better Burnley. That defense is really difficult to get by, and you have to move them side to side. You have to vary the attacking situations. And I thought we did that really well. Starting, the goal came from the left wing, and it was a brilliant goal, a fine Matt Target cross. And you tweeted it as well, mate, is exactly the kind of chances that gave Ollie Watkins 26 championship goals last season. It's finishing those, 6-yard box, around 12 yards, around that zone. He's lethal. And I thought we did really well. But whilst the goal came from the left side, as I was saying, most of the attacks went down the right in the first half, actually, if you look at the stats. And we went in at half-time, 1-0 up. And I thought, you know what? We haven't really taken our chances, but I think we're going to be okay. Because before the game, there'd been just 13 Premier League goals at Turf Moor this season. That's not for Burnley. That's in games at Turf Moor. There have been 13 goals. We are in almost February. And I was like, you know what? One goal with the way that we defend, if we can get another in the second half, I think we're going to be okay. But yet again, mate, and it feels like we're either doing one or the other on the podcast week in, week out. We're either discussing VAR, which I'm actually relieved that we're discussing a loss and I haven't got any major beef with VAR this time, or zonal marking from corners. And I'm going to throw it back to you, Dan, because I know you're someone that agrees with me on this. Burnley are a side, 64% of their goals this season have come from set pieces. Surely, when you're aware of the threats that Ben Mee and James Tarkowski and Chris Wood and Jay Rodriguez all highlight from aerial balls and indeed set pieces, surely you just play it safe. And for this one game, just go man for man.
You'd think so, and it's an approach where it isn't the first time, Dan, that we've been caught out with the zonal marking, and it won't be the last time either. And it's probably my most infuriating trend of modern day football of this the new game, this obsession with being zonal. It never works. Plenty of times we can criticize pundits like Graham Souness and the like, who come on telly and they come with this old fashioned approach, fit and proper, go hard or go home, that kind of mentality. But I don't think it can be argued that you have to match man for man in these kinds of situations, because I think with the third goal as well, which is nothing to do with the zonal marking, but of course you're left with the chance to defend the ball. From Matt Targett is trying to defend that cross against Chris Wood, which is obviously never going to happen. So you can see the kind of similarities that are there. It's a frustrating one that we're still struggling with this, but Dean clearly thinks it's the way forward, and he's not going to change because neither you or I think it's right, Dan, or anyone else. Unfortunately, I don't think Dean listens to the podcast, so it'd be fairly redundant for us to sit here for the next 25 minutes and berate that. I think what I found frustrating was, and again, this comes down to Nick Pope being as good as he was, because there was the Bertrand Traore shot, which he takes to the chest, which at first I thought was a magnificent save, but I mean, it was straight at him, in fairness. But, he made big saves when it mattered. I don't think Villa, despite having over 100 touches in the final third, that's to be expected when you come up against a low block and a team that is going to be more than happy to sit within their 6-yard box, defend really deep, have 9 men behind the ball, and hope that they can keep the clean sheet, they can keep the deficit down. For me, and again, I'm going to bring up the average positions of which our players occupied, Dan, because it looks a lot better just generally. I picked out Matty Cash on the last podcast. He seems to be in a much better position, and I think that showed today. But him and Targett were not penetrating the space out wide nearly enough for me, and that is the sole way you overcome a low block, Dan. The fullbacks have to get forward. They have to get that ball to the byline, and you have to create space by doing that. You're going to hope that you draw the defense out in doing so. And for me, Villa didn't do that enough tonight. Looking at the average positions, again, it looks largely good, but when you're comparing that to Burnley, you've got Targett and Matty Cash both in good positions out wide, just not quite over the halfway line, which for me absolutely isn't good enough, because, as I said, you want them to be further up the pitch. You want them to be a bit more advanced. Of course, you've got to be cautious of the counter-attack, which is something that Villa struggled to deal with a lot in the second half. But to capitalise on the momentum and the form and how it was all kind of going in Villa's favour in the first half, Dan, both Targett and Matty Cash, for me, had to do a bit more going forward, because I think Bertrand was often looking for that ball to the back post for Anwar El Ghazi. That is almost, it's telekinesis at this point. He knows he has to put the ball there, and Jack couldn't get into them positions because of how Burnley defended. So you have to work the ball wide. You have to recycle the play. You've got to be really patient, but you've got to be relentless in that final third. And the position that Traore occupied as well. He, looking at this position map, is actually a bit deeper than the likes of Grealish and Watkins. Barkley's just kind of floating in between. very good positioning from the likes of Douglas Luiz and John McGinn in the midfield, covering the centre of the park very well. I think they did very good just in general across the whole game. Douglas probably a bit unfortunate to come off, but I feel like Villa could have done more to leave Turf Moor, Dan, with 3 points, even a point. I think, you just got to look at the amount of, the fact we've had 18 shots again. We had 27 shots last time we played them at Villa Park, and we drew. And I mean, clearly we have to have more if we want to beat Burnley, don't we, Dan?
Yeah, it's crazy. When you look at the stats, it's really difficult to cherry pick the ones which turned the game in Burnley's favour. In the first half, we didn't make a tackle, and that sounds like something that's bad, but we didn't need to.
Yeah.
The first half was some of the best football I've seen Villa play this season. How we went in at 1-0 down really baffles me. And but then in the second half, and mate, we both like to come on this podcast and talk about the stats and the analysis and the little fine details and the numbers that change games and stuff like that. But unfortunately, I've just got to bring you guys a cliche. And I just felt that as soon as both of those teams took the pitch for the second half, Burnley just wanted it a whole lot more. That's all I think it comes down to. If I'm looking just at the second half specifically here, they attempted 20 tackles, Villa attempted 10. Burnley 7 interceptions to Villa's 5. Burnley 16 clearances to Villa's 5. Burnley 7 blocks to Villa's 4. Burnley won 15 aerial duels compared to Villa's 9. Villa threw away the ball more times, but that's not necessarily a negative stat. It's because we're being more expansive. Neither team made an error during the game, or it's classed as a statistical error, so caveat that slightly. But Burnley just came out and was supercharged. And once you saw them get that first goal, that belief never left them. And it's that belief, mate, that even, you wind it back to the start of the season and September, October, and it seemed, didn't it, that this was finally going to be the season that failed Burnley, that this was a step too far, that they hadn't recruited, and that, this was their Premier League swan song, so to speak. But look at them now and the results that they're on, and it's that same belief that they showed in the second half, which means that they're going to consistently keep doing this in the Premier League. And there is a certain element of respect you have to give that, I suppose. I mean, if you look at their last few games, that win against Liverpool is that exact kind of desire, mate. And I think we failed to match that ultimately. And look, I don't think that's necessarily much of a slight on the Villa boys, because how many teams in the Premier League can go out there and match Burnley in, with fire meets fire and play things their way. But I think Villa just got a little bit lackadaisical. I think we as soon as we went 2-1 up, I think we felt that was that. We'd done the work. We'd come back into it. We got the goal. We can just defend, see it out. And that's never the case when you play this side. I mean, Chris Wood is constantly the thorn in our side, isn't he? 4 goals in his last 5 career starts against the Villa. So obviously he was going to have a say at some point. But no, I thought it was just a case of Burnley doing what Burnley do best. And unfortunately in the second half, and mate, don't take this is me having anything negatives to say on the season, but it's the same things which keep haunting the Villa. And look, there are far too many positives to take from this season to get bogged down in those. But why, with the game being so end-to-end as it was and being so unpredictable, it took us until the 82nd minute to make a substitute, is beyond me. That has to change. It's these little things, the late substitutions, the zonal marking from corners and stuff like that. And it feels like perhaps with all the positives, we're maybe losing sight of the ways that we can continue to keep improving. But just before I am, it feels like I've been talking for an age, but it is, if we are looking for a positive, it is, when I'm talking about substitutes too, the exact kind of game you want Morgan Sanson in. 2-1 up, bring him on, dictate the game, keep things ticking over, just keep the ball, keep doing the simple things, maintain Villa on the front foot, just be the metronome. And I felt like Villa lacks that tonight. And so if we're looking for a positive, hopefully that is a hole in the squad and a hole in our game management plan that ultimately has now been addressed.
Yeah, no, I think you make a really good point, Dan. I think it was fairly obvious that this game was slowly slipping away from Villa. And at halftime, they made the substitution. Brownhill came off, and they brought on Goodmanson, I think it was. Well, I know he came on a bit later on in the game. Jack Cork, came on at halftime, and then they bring on someone like Mate Vidra. They were really going for this game, and it's the the minute things, the game management that when it comes down to it, that's what cost Villa today. It's part. I agree with what you said, Dan, about how it's cliche. Burnley wanted it more. Part of me feels like at this stage, with how good Villa are, it's a bit of a cop out of an answer, and there's nothing more really we can say on that, because I feel like Villa, we've seen the levels that we're capable of this season. They just didn't match it today, and that is unfortunate. And as you say, having the options to bring off on the bench, even at 2-1, if you are going to go, okay, well let's see this game out, you have Marvelous Nakamba, who just played 90 minutes of excellent football only 4 days ago.
Very good point.
If you want to control the game, bring Marv on. I completely see your point about Sanson. If you're going to continue to attack the game and try and just score as many goals as possible, because in transition, he is that player. And that is definitely an option that Dean will look at if he's, if he doesn't start against Southampton, if he doesn't start against West Ham, because, we don't know what the situation is with that. But Villa attacked the game when they needed to, and that was when they were trailing. So, and would Villa have attacked with that same intent had they not have gone the goal down? I'd argue not. So, Dean bringing the Canberra on is more than plausible. We've seen him bring someone like Jacob Ramsey on. I feel like it would have been a baptism of fire putting him on today and expecting him to pull up trees and maybe score or assist or just do something in general. I feel like as the game went on, Ross wasn't contributing as much, because you see him in this position further up the field, which, that's where he plays his best football. But ultimately, I think we can't really afford to have a freeloader. And I'm not saying he is, because there are plenty of times where he comes and he steals possession and he really does get Villa going. But it was obvious that this game was getting away from Villa. The momentum was swinging in Burnley's favour. As I say, they made these substitutions. They were scoring the goals. I mean, that Schross and from McNeil, that is terrible. It was at half time as well. No, it wasn't at half time. I can't remember when it was, but I said I was talking about Schrosses with my dad, and of course Dwight McNeil has to go and score one the night I mentioned a Schross, so I'm never going to do that again. But I mean, that was a frustrating one as well, because you saw Cash quite ignorantly give up possession, trying to clear the danger, and he didn't quite think it through. Maybe he had a bit more time to hoof it longer or just have a look for another option. Ball comes back, that ball in the box, no one's able to get onto it, and it just trickles in. It's a really frustrating one. And, as you alluded to there, Burnley have barely scored any goals this season. 13 goals have happened at Turf Moor this season. 6 of them are Burnley's goals. They have scored 6 goals. So they scored more than half of the goals that they have managed to all season at home tonight against Villa. That's not a good look for Emi Martinez. It's not a good look for Tyrone Mings or Ezri Konsa or my fantasy football team, Dan. And I know it's not a good look for yours and like 50% of the nation as well, because everybody has Emi in goal. I mean, there's not really much Emi could have done. As I say, it doesn't really reflect well. And you've got Steve McManaman going, oh, look, they've scored 3 goals. Burnley have been good value. Yeah, to be fair, in the second half, Burnley did outplay us. That's really embarrassing to say, but they did. Emi made a couple of big saves, so it's just a shame that we're not going to see that kind of return in FPL, and it didn't really bear that much of an impact on the game, Dan. But I feel like we spoke about this game to death. I really do. We've not even really spoke about our goals, Dan. So, the second goal, that was really nice. And what I was talking about earlier, Dan, with how you have to get the ball out wide, you have to drag defenders out of positions to overcome a low block. We saw that. And, it was a beautiful movement, assisted by Douglas Luiz as well, which is nice if anybody may have him on FPL, because he doesn't tend to accrue many points. Nice to see Grealish arriving in the middle to score as well. It was a really nice movement, Dan. Villa. There were good moments in this game for Villa, which again, it's important that we say, but that second half just weren't good enough.
Mate, the second goal, Rotherham away. Carbon
Yes.
copy. Carbon copy. Great goal. You know what, mate? I had to say, Jack made me eat my hat slightly because when he arrives on the edge of the box, funnily enough, as I'm sure both you and I did when we were at the Rotherham game, I was screaming at my TV going, Jack, shoot. Just shoot. Like,
Yeah.
I've seen you drill past the whole Burnley team like 10 minutes before. Like, just have the confidence. You know you can do it. We saw your Instagram stories, Jack. Don't worry. We saw them. I watched all 5 minutes of you like banging free kicks, top bins. Shoot. And he lays it off to Douglas. And honestly, I almost lost it. But for me not looking up and seeing Douglas slide it perfectly back into his path, as Elmo did a few years ago, and Jack took home, it was great. And honestly, like Jack, what a season he's having. 15 goal contributions in the Premier League for him this season, which is just nuts. Shout out to Ollie as well, because Ollie got into double figures today for goal contributions as well. 8 goals,
A
2
lovely
assists.
finish.
And so look, a lot to be positive for, mate. But it is so hard when we're doing all the positives that are so negative, like so technically created and so difficult to put together. When it's the simple things which are undoing the Villa at the back door. But no, look, mate, this game hopefully will wake us up a little bit. I don't think it's no doubt Villa fans will turn it into one, but there's no need for crisis. There's no need for craziness. Like, it's a win that will wake the Villa boys up, realise that they can never take this league lightly. We've got some tough games coming up. But you know what? I think after the game that we've had, it will inspire the best of Villa, and we definitely need a response. I mean, Southampton next is difficult. Then you've got West Ham at home, who is, that's a big battle of the overachievers this season. And then we've got Arsenal at home as well. And so look, it's going to be a tough run of games, but the Villa, I anticipate, will give us a response. And it's in those bigger games the Villa often perform better. So, now we've got this run of games where we needed to pick up a point, we can start really testing ourselves. And I think we need to put this one behind us.
Absolutely. It's going to be a tough game, Dan, on Saturday, as you've alluded to there. Southampton is next. They're coming fresh off the back of a 3-1 defeat to Arsenal last night. Wonderful goal from Armstrong, by the way, last night as well. That's worthy of a game winner, if not for Arteta somehow managing to get Alexander Lacazette scoring again. Truly, truly remarkable. But Southampton's going to be a really tough game, Dan. Arguably as tough as the West Ham game that you've got coming up, as the Arsenal game that's coming up. And Villa sit 9th in the table. Southampton, where are Southampton?
They're 11th.
Well, there you go. So it's that kind of battle. You've got Southampton, you've got West Ham. This is the kind of will they, won't they breach into that European spot. So this is you've heard of relegation 6-pointers. This is a European place 6-pointer. This is the battle for Europa League football. And I never feel good about playing Southampton, Dan. I really don't, despite the fact that they lost to Arsenal. Did you catch the game last night?
I did, yeah.
I'm glad you did, because I didn't watch any football last night, and that was a poor mistake because there were so many good games on. So, Dan, what can we expect from Southampton? As I said, I saw the goals. Yep. Wonderful finish from Armstrong. I feel like he's someone who, before Hasenhüttl even came in, you wouldn't have even considered a Premier League player, and he's a key cog to how Southampton work, isn't he, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, Southampton were a side who really took the league by storm, didn't they, earlier on in the season? But they've reached the halfway stage in the season with a really healthy 29 points. But it's really slowed down since the turn of the new year. It's just 1 win in 7 top-flight games now for Hasenhüttl. There's so much to admire about what they do, but they've slipped down to 11th, and look, we can't scoff at that. We're now 10th. But they're a side who we're playing them at the right time, and that's what I will say. But we have to see both sides of the coin, mate, and look at the fact that Villa, in the same way Southampton will be. Southampton will look at this Villa side after the way that we've just performed in that second half and think that this is their game to stop that rut. And so you can't really look too much into the stats when Southampton are going to be looking at a response. And when they get things right, Southampton, they can really play some football, mate. They can really play some football, as you know. And it's going to be difficult, and that's so difficult to call. Hopefully, we get to see Sanson. It'll be a really nice game for him to come in and play in, because I saw a lot of people actually comparing him to James Ward-Prowse before we signed him. And so it'd be an interesting to see if we get that midfield battle and see how those two clones come up against each other. But no, mate, I'm not, I like that it's coming quickly. I like that we haven't got to sit on this result for too long. I like that we can go again at the weekend and try and put this game behind us. And it won't be easy, but if we come away from the South Coast, the place that we've typically struggled. I mean, I still have nightmares about that Sadio Mane hat trick, don't you?
Yeah.
But you never know, mate. I think if we come away from the South Coast with a point or three, obviously 3 would be a delight, but a draw, and just show a bit more consistency across the pitch, I think it'd be a good result.
Yeah, this it is important that we set ourselves up for this West Ham game very well. At home, that's going to be really big. We deserved more away in that reverse fixture, Dan. I think I really do. Obviously we had the Ollie Watkins disallowed goal. Ogbonna suddenly decided he was gonna play WWE. He's gonna change his career path to being a wrestler. But here we go, Dan. I'm not going to ask you for a score prediction. I'm going to let you off tonight. I'll give you mine. I'm going to say 1-1. I think Villa clearly have a goal or two in them away from home. We can't underestimate Southampton and how hard they work, how hard they hustle. You've just got to look at Burnley and how we really struggled with their hustle. So if Villa can match that going into the game on the South Coast on Sunday evening, I think it's an 8 o'clock kickoff, isn't it, Dan? Which is that's a bit grim. I'm sure the players will appreciate it a bit more, considering they will be travelling up on the day as they did today, which is something that they're going to have to get used to with the tight fixtures, with COVID, with all that kind of stuff. But it's going to be an interesting game, to say the least. We'll really see where Villa do stand, I feel, over the next 2 or 3 games, Dan. And for whatever reason, Zoom has decided to say that we're running out of minutes. So it's just as well that we're wrapping up this podcast right here, Dan. So yeah, 1-1. I'm going to predict Dan's match. That is more than fine. Let us know, guys, in the comments below. We don't want this to be needlessly negative. We don't want it to be needlessly positive either. But let us know who you thought your man of the match was for the game tonight. It's a difficult one to say, to be fair. I feel like Grealish, again, had a really good game. He scored. He was influential in the first goal as well. Frustrated figure today, to say the least. But let us know who your man of the match would be. And let us know some score predictions for our game against Southampton. And before we go, I'd just like to give a massive shout out to everybody who's watched this and everybody who has watched the Samsung trailer, Samsung announcement as well. Sorry. I think we're over 7,000 views. We've just passed 3,800 subscribers, which is absolutely crazy. So if you're part of the 50% of people who watch this podcast and aren't subscribed, do us a favor, subscribe, hit the notification button. That way you'll never miss a podcast and upload a live stream from Dan and I on the Heart of the Holte channel. And if you like what you see, hit the like button and comment your thoughts below. Up the Villa.